YouTube, it's Holy One, and I just bought the RYZEN 2700X and see how it performs over my other games. It's going to be a 10% to 15% boost over my 1700X, but I sold that for $200 and got this puppy. So yeah, it's all brand new. It's got that Wraith cooler. I won't be using this. I got a liquid cooling. We'll go through the installation after I do the unboxing. Oh yeah, so let's unbox this. Okay, let's get it out. So here's the cooler, RGB for that. Right here is the RYZEN CPU with the new RYZEN sticker. So let's get this baby installed and see if it runs on my computer on my old BIOS. Okay, scales, let's install this. I did some cable management in this. So let's install the CPU. And yes, this CPU is backwards compatible with AM4s. I'm using a very cheap motherboard. It's the B350, so I'm going to see if it works on this motherboard. So let's clip that in. Now I'm going to get my liquid cooling to put on this CPU, and then we'll install that next. I have overclocked it, and if I go in here, now it's at 4.25 gigahertz, and I'm liquid cooling it, so it's 34C for my tuner. So I got the thing all set up in there with liquid cooling, 32 gigs of RAM, and a 1080 Ti, and we're gonna benchmark this right now. So I already did Cinebench, but for some reason it can't detect my overclocking, but I got another software that can do that called User Benchmarks. This is one that most PC gamers use to run all their systems. So this will test all components in the system and then run a diagnostic and say, oh, this is running slower than it should, or this is running faster than it should, and then it gives you results based off of that. And then I'm going to run 2 games for my 2700X. I'm going to run Rise of the Tomb Raider at 1440p because this Ryzen CPU, I've noticed, loves higher resolutions, and it gave 8700K a run for his money. And for my second game, I'm going to run Ni no Kuni 2. Now the reason I'm running Ni no Kuni 2 is because I noticed that game is very CPU heavy, and when I ran it on my 2700X, I was blown away by how much more FPS I was getting out of it because it loves more higher clocks and CPU power, because it has a lot of enemies on screen. It's a world building game, that sort of thing. So my FPS on that ran from it went from 80, 100 FPS to 150 to 200. So I don't know if that was my other motherboard, but we'll find out once that game is launched up and good to go. So I have overclocked this thing maxed out, and my temperatures have been pretty good on my Corsair liquid cooling. As you saw, it's 38C and 40C. It probably only goes up to 50C. So it's going to be pretty good. So right now it's done the RAM, the CPU, and it's going to be running the video memory. So now it's running 4K assets, 4K video, 4K reading tests. It's going to give me some 4K simulation. Now it's running some FPS tests. Don't mind the screeching. My 1080 Ti has some coil whine, but it's only noticeable at higher FPS. It runs like a charm. I did get a backplate for it, so that didn't really help, but it keeps the dust off of it. So this thing's generating our results. Let's get going on that. Now we're gonna look at the results. Gaming 124%, desktop, workstation. Everything is green. It's got 32 gigs of RAM. As you guys can see, my 2700X is way in the green. Outstanding. My 1080 Ti, non-overclocked, is doing really good. And I got 3 hard drives, and my RAM is just over the green line, so everything is running optimal. So my rig is looking good. Let's begin the gaming benchmarks now. Tomb Raider 1440p, no anti-aliasing, full screen. Every graphical setting is maxed out. Everything is turned to max. Tessellation, hairworks, all of that. Let us begin the benchmark, guys. See how it handles Rise of the Tomb Raider. Now my 1700X gave me 110 frames per second with these settings. So we're going to see how the 2700X at 4.2 gigahertz, 4.25 gigahertz. They say it can go up to 4.3, but yeah, it can't. It really can't. It's kind of fake marketing, similar to, you know, NVIDIA's 970 4 gigabytes when it only had 3.5. So yeah, the FPS looks pretty good. We'll see when we get into those demanding settings. Yeah, the reason I went with Ryzen is because I like to multitask when I'm gaming, watching videos, podcasts, play a shooter, and with Intel you lose a little bit of performance doing that, and video capture. But with Ryzen you avoid that performance loss by a lot. So, plus it's cheaper. I won't be using the Spire cooler because, let's be real, if I was, I couldn't overclock it to this high on that. But with liquid cooling, I totally can. Now this is a G-Sync monitor, so you guys won't be seeing any screen tearing. Forgive the quality of the video capture, but I wanted to get the maximum frame rate without using video capture software. Can't wait for Shadow of the Tomb Raider, that's going to be awesome. Alright, let's see those FPSs. 117 frames per second. So a 7-frame increase. Not too bad. Test, I'm going with Ni no Kuni 2. The frame rate okay, so my 1700X, I had around 100 to 125 frames per second. I'm just going to do some straight video gameplay of this so you guys can see the massive frame rate boost.